There we go.
Yes, there is a US bank holiday, by the way.
Oh, there is.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know what though? I mean, there's such a dive in the FTSE on Friday. I suspect there's likely to be some volatility and maybe a push to the upside. But
Okay.
yeah, some of those moves. I mean, I was looking for upside, but fortunately, I grabbed a little bit of one. But it could have been an awful day. It was a pretty bad day to be fair, but not. It could have been so much worse. But the but yeah, geez, the market was absolutely tanking on Friday. I
Yeah.
think we
Got that.
lost well over well over 100 pips, which is unusual.
Yeah, I'm glad I moved my stops on the pound. It went the other way, of course.
That's right. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The pound was flying, wasn't it? While that one was tanking. Yeah, it was crazy.
I did the right thing.
You did. Yeah, you did. Um, so uh,
Yep.
yeah, give me 5 minutes. So, do you want to take the screen? Well, I've given you the
Sure.
screen. I haven't got any visual.
Bang and bang.
Awesome. Right, I'll be 5 minutes. I'm with you.
Okay. I'm just going to hang around here and start talking about. What do I start talking about? Let's start talking about. I haven't really made up my mind today on a lot of these crosses, so it's a bit of a walk through the majors versus the US dollar, and let's see what we can find. Eh? Interesting, of course, that we do have a US bank holiday on this day, a few hours from now, of course. But the point is, well, the point usually is when there is a US bank holiday or indeed a UK bank holiday, the market doesn't tend to want to do too much. And I don't know if we're going to see that today or not. It is a Monday, of course, traditionally one of the quiet days of trading, but it's not always the case. And I guess it's not always the case when we've got a bank holiday in the US or the UK either. But it is pretty much a rule of mine that I don't get too serious into investing in lots of positions. And if I see one naturally, I'll react. But if I don't, then perhaps it's going to be a quiet day. We shall see. First up, as I say, let's take a look at the euro and look at that big candle. We talked about this last week. Sure, we spoke about this last week with this big bearish engulfing bar that, of course, was the week before. That continued last week, as you can see. Both got little bit of tail to them, I suppose, as selling just, I suppose, eased off a bit in the last day of the week. NFP, of course, last week. I haven't really had a look at that number. I suppose that's worthy of doing. Let's have a check in on that. As a matter of fact, as we do go to the Forex factory and see what's on offer. Well, there you see that there's no big, outstanding, bold red news on the radar today. But we do have a bank holiday in Japan. We've got a bank holiday in Canada, and we've got a bank holiday in the US of A. Columbus Day, I think I read there at some stage. Whatever that means, I guess it's around about the discovery time of the states. Not being an avid historian, but yeah, I do know that he was around about there somewhere. Okay, so in terms of that, it could be a little bit dull in the market with not so much liquidity. But I want to go back to last Thursday. It was a big miss, wasn't it? Pretty much half of the previous and worse than the forecast. What did the privatised number do on Wednesday? Or was it Thursday? Thursday, maybe. Really? Couldn't have been Tuesday. That's bizarre. Let me have a check. Tick Orange News. Maybe it's changed to Orange News. Can't imagine. But let's see. Wednesday. I thought it was on Wednesday. Oh, there it is. No, it's not. bizarre. Still not seeing orange signals. Sorry, guys. I just want to get this right. Tuesday, no, wasn't expected. Wednesday is when it's expected. There it is. It's orange news now. Okay. So that complete disparity. If you'd banked on that as being a lead-in for the non-farm payroll, you would have got it horribly, horribly wrong, because that was way better than forecast, way better than the previous. And if you pretty much go then to Friday, it swung around completely in the opposite pole. Yeah, that's crazy. So a bad number was printed on the non-farm payroll. What else happened on Friday? Wow, that's a good one. Employment change for Canada was amazing. And the unemployment rate steady at 5.9, not so great, but steady. And the retail sales were hit by the Aussie, exactly as forecast. So that should have helped, but the Aussie's in such disarray at the moment that it's really, really difficult to be anywhere near even neutral rather than bullish. But the non-farm payroll, that's very, very interesting. All right, and today, of course, as I said, is all about holidays in Japan, Canada, and the US of A. All right, so let's go back to the charts with all of that information on board and see what we can decipher. CAD. Don't really trade the CAD, but I might have the Euro CAD and the Aussie CAD a little bit later in the day. Let's stick with the majors. Euro, looking very bearish, but is, as you can see, at a reasonable support level here, and the bottom of this range that we've been in for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, apart from the false break that we saw in August down here. So, what are we thinking? Well, on the back of those two candles, you're probably entitled to be thinking bearishly, and that level there appears to have been broken and retested. So, on the score of, I guess, that break, the break at the bottom of that range and the retest, I'm probably a little bit bearish, thinking that there's maybe something underneath here, and a test of that low that we saw in August, as I said before. Bullish? No, not yet. But one thing I would say, if we do get back into this zone, and that green line tells me the bottom of that range, this is still set up for the NFP trade. Sorry, not the NFP, the FOMC trade. So what I'm seeing here is two likely outcomes. One, of course, would be the breakdown after this candle. So if price gets back to here, I would expect it to accelerate and find that low around about the 113.30, 40 mark. If, however, we find our way back above this green line, which appears to be in concert with the weekly pivot here, that changes things a little bit, because we're then back inside that range where we've been sitting for 6 months, not quite 6 months, 5 months, nearly 5 months anyway. So that's the equation here for me today. Underneath this green line, bearish. Above this green line, well, a little bit on the bullish side. Let's have a look at that on the 4-hour chart and see what it looks like. You can see why this is a level of import, if you like, because prices have been flittering around it for days on end. 1, 2, 3 of them now. Thursday, Friday, and of course today as we speak to you. We came down to here, had a little bit of a rally, smashed through the support, back to it, and now sitting pretty much bang on that daily pivot area, and not too willing to get away from it. Today we're trying to find that way short. I think that trend line sitting up there may be interesting, actually. Quite. So we might keep our eye on that, and if we look like getting a bounce off it and back into this area, I think I might be interested in taking them on. We've got a big bullish engulfing bar here. We've also got a double bottom, if you like. We've got a higher low. I think if this could become another higher low, this could well get back inside that range and we might be looking at some upside for euro dollar. As I say, the converse is evident if we do break below that daily candle right there. So that's where I've got my eyes, on this level and on that level. I'm yet to make a decision in terms of which way I prefer to go, but I think if I have a look at the 4-hour chart again, it's going to tell me that we've really had a breakdown of the daily pivot without retesting, and that's always of interest to me as well.
It's a tricky one, isn't it, the euro? Because that is kind of a reversal pattern on that weekly, but it's so such a long way off from being completed that it may not come to fruition.
Yeah, look, if I look at this particular part of this chart, and if I could erase that part, I'd be thinking now long. If this candle were to be a low test bar, for instance,
yeah,
or a hammer, even, but because that is here, it changes the complexion of things quite dramatically.
Yeah.
And of course, Friday's NFP didn't really do too much. We're pretty much on that same plane. We went into that consolidating. We've come out of it consolidating at the end of the day. I think this area here, that line that I just drew in, is probably where I'd like to find some action. And if we get to there, I'll see what candles present and make a decision from there. But yeah, I'm quite indecisive as to which way is the better way to go, frankly. And I think I'll just let price tell me, mate.
Yeah.
Cable, very interesting cable.
Extremely.
Not only has it rallied off this level here, which we did speak about on Thursday, which of course is when all the rallying began off this little double bottom. Fortunately, we saw that coming and tightened our stops up on the short that we had in place, and we're now out of that trade, of course, having banked twice, so that's all good. But what's interesting now is that we've broken this trend line. We've jumped above the weekly pivot, now coming back to test the daily pivot. And the pivots are telling me that we're now in bullish mode, which of course, if you go back in time not so long, only to this little scenario, we've really been in a bullish mood since, I guess, the middle of August on this cross. What am I seeing is really the question. And what I am seeing is that retracement is probably around about a 50% retracement. It's on last month's monthly, and it's starting to bounce. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see a test of the daily pivot and on with that rally, maybe testing this high again in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And then make a decision from there. But yeah, these last two candles are pretty bullish. And I think the one thing that's giving me a strong indication that this may go long is the break of that trend line.
I see the one. So what price are you looking for with that?
To get in?
Yeah.
Oh, right around about there. 130.79.
Yeah, I've got something very similar. I know you're still doing the analysis, but as we're on this, can I just quickly show you what I've got here? Because I've got to share my screen. I was also looking at the pound, and what I was looking at was similar to you when looking at those daily pivots, and there is that daily pivot pretty close to where we sit right now. But my price is fairly close. I think it's somewhere around about this level. And when I kind of when I kind of come out rather than mining in, I've got this potential area of support here on the daily, somewhere in this area, 67, between 67 and probably the 79 that you've got as well. But I know that the pivot is sat. I think we probably would dip a little bit beneath the pivot, and then end up holding it. Now I don't think we make it down to the weekly, but I'd quite like a further dip down. Now I've got a trend line in, and No, that's probably not relevant. So let's get rid of that. Oops. But my yeah. So I look at looking at this on the daily. This area here I think would be of interest. But the other reason that I quite like this level here is that when I think about these bars, these two negative bars here, the the price that makes these bars really bullish is when you take out the highs, because there are going to be people that have gone short at the low and with stops at the highs.
Yep.
But I never discard the close on that, because there are also going to be a section of people that have gone effectively intraday. Because obviously, if that was where the open was on the previous week, then there's going to be intraday price action around about that particular level, which there is kind of in these areas here. So so that kind of draws me into somewhere along this price. And as I say, when you look out on the daily as well, there's a level of support there. So somewhere in this zone here is where I'd quite like to see if there's a turn in the market. But we're certainly very, very close to a price that I'd quite like to go long with the pound. I also think what's quite interesting is the FTSE took an absolute battering off the back of the pound's strength, and with a little bit of pound weakness coming in so far this morning, I would look for the FTSE to rally to this area but then turn around. So I would suspect that with a pound, or what I'd be quite keen on with a pound, is for the FTSE to effectively come into this area early doors, the pound to continue to maybe weaken, maybe even stabilize, so over a course of a few hours. But then after seeing the FTSE come up there, I'd like to see the FTSE come back down again, and at least possibly carve out a reversal pattern ready for tomorrow, possibly continue to the downside. I mean, I am looking for a down day in the FTSE, but I see a rally happening first, so I'm looking for the rally to pick up a short. I very rarely want to go short on the FTSE, even when it's so deep. But the US bank holiday, the fact that we might have slightly lighter liquidity today, the extremity of the move to the downside, the fact that it does seem to be about the pound, and the pound hasn't really kind of done a spike to the upside, and it doesn't look like it's just going to fall straight off the highs without question. So I'm looking for the pound to stabilize and push to the upside, and the FTSE to push into this area and then push back down again by maybe mid-morning, maybe middle of the day. So I'm on a similar pace to you, I think, but maybe the price would be slightly different.
Is there a fundamental reason why this happened on Friday?
I was looking into it, and it appears that there was some movement on the rhetoric from the EU. I think it might have even been Juncker had come out and said that they were a lot closer on many things than it appeared. So the deal starts to become a lot more likely to be presented. I mean, they've still got to get it through Parliament. That's the biggest issue that Theresa May's got. They've still got to get whatever deal that there is through Parliament, and it makes it very, very tricky for the pound, because I've still got a little bit of a feeling that that with the pound, that even though we could start to move to the upside, that we may still find that it struggles to get through the next significant level, whether it's there or maybe whether it's there. But I think we still may struggle to get through that significant level unless there's a deal. If there is a genuine deal, the deal gets agreed by the European Parliament, and it gets agreed by the British Parliament. The British government and the European negotiators, and then it's ratified by Parliament. Then I think we see some significant upside with the pound. But this is so early. I think anybody getting in down here will be comfortable that they have got enough room for more speculation. Even if we don't get in to the upside for another week or two, I don't think there's going to be a huge issue. But because the Europeans, not only did they say that they were closer, but I think they said they were so close that I think it's the 17th of October, that meeting, the next European meeting. I think they were effectively saying that they could get it done by then, and then they're just kind of clearing away some of the leaves by November. So that's what gave the pound its rallying momentum last week. And unless somebody else comes out and says something different, today, which is very unlikely, then I think we probably will still continue to attempt to push to the upside. Looks like there would be a little trend line here as well, which could be of interest.
That's the one I'm back to.
Yeah, yeah, that looks pretty good to me. That looks pretty good. I think I would be completely on the same page as you when it comes down to that. So we just need some signs and signals in this area that the pound's going to hold, and I think we'll be all good. The thing about these trend lines, isn't it, that they could actually they could take a little while longer and still be valid. This trend line will be valid all the way down here. So. It may take a little longer, so it could be bubbling around a little bit further. But I think this level's pretty good. We got a definite level of support. This would show a definite change of polarity, and even on the intraday short-term level, I think this is a great level to try and take a trade. And whether we get through the highs today or tomorrow is maybe slightly in question. But I think for an intraday trade, this is a perfect level to try and be going long with the pound. So let's see if we get any genuine signs and signals that we can trade this.
That's where I'm at, mate. Pretty much exactly on that level. What on earth are we going to do when Brexit is actually put to bed, resolved, and all over and done with? What on earth are we going to talk about with
Well, I think we'll probably be talking about the euro, because it seems to me that that Italy are certainly sticking their head above the parapet and putting some bullets across the bow, putting some cannons across the bow of the great ship Europe, because the vice president has come out and said that he will not accept the stringent lending from the European banks anymore, and it is going to be an end to austerity. And he's even called for a government in waiting next year, because there's European elections next year, and his belief is that we get a new government in the European banks and the European Parliament that will be because I think Draghi's last year is next year, as far as I'm aware. So he believes that the borrowing and the lending from Europe will be different next year. Now, we both know that even a few months is a great deal of time. So how he's making that prediction, I'm not quite sure, or how he's even comfortable making that prediction, I'm not quite sure. So that's his position, and that's what he believes, and that's what he will look to go for. But I would have a few questions, certainly. For that to be the specific case, but yeah, that's where it's all coming from. That might be the next thing for us on the horizon. With Draghi leaving, he's been in for a long time, and he's seen a huge change in the euro. He's managed to kind of guide them through a massive moment in their history. So what happens next year? Maybe next year is the year that the euro comes under further pressure. Italy is no small player in the European game and picture. So that may well be something that we could look out for. Look to be the thing that would change from next year, and also. Brexit has got a lot longer to go. I don't think we're really going to be out of the woods of this whole Brexit thing probably for another 2 years, maybe even 5. So it's going to depend on what happens with these negotiations, because if there is a deal, then maybe there's going to be a slightly different picture. But if Europe starts to struggle, what does that deal then become? Is there less chance that that deal becomes so significant, because actually the European project becomes so under pressure that the UK deal gets dragged in with it. I mean, certainly if the Europeans come under pressure and the UK has managed to break away from Europe, then I could certainly see sterling versus the euro having a fantastic rally after that, because I think it will probably be perceived that we are going to be a safe place for investors to come back into. While still having access to the euro block, it's going to be a safer place to have access to, because we will less likely get dragged into all the problems and all the mire. So yeah, I don't.
So there was really nothing to worry about. We're going to have plenty to talk about.
There's going to be loads, mate. Yeah, there's going to be loads. And as you say, there always is. I mean, this whole thing, if we track right back to the recession that we had in 2008, we've basically had 10 years of things to talk about, and I don't think that changes anytime soon. Plus the fact, if the pound does rally and these tensions still continue with China and these trade wars and the rest of the world, really, with the United States, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a recession very, very close at hand. You know, when we look at back to the FTSE again, if I look at this FTSE 100. The FTSE 100 is still in a primary uptrend. This moment here was when it was at its greatest risk, and this moment here was during the Brexit referendum and Brexit vote, which everybody thought would make the UK market tank, but it didn't. It continued to move to the upside. But this is a monthly chart, and the monthly chart suggests that it's got to remain along this particular trajectory to remain an upside. So it's only going to take this to start to break down below the trend line to start with, and below the lows here, for us to change direction. So if this low gets taken out, I mean, if the monthly low gets taken out here, same sort of bar that we just saw with that pound. If people have started to put their buy orders in here, they probably wouldn't be triggered in actually, but there are going to be stops down here. So any stops will get taken out there, probably take us back to this low. If this low gets taken out, who knows how low it could go? You know, I was looking as low as 6,000. So there may well be a recession on the way as well. So there's lots.
That could happen very, very quickly as well, because
it absolutely could.
You know, there's a lot of people waiting for this to happen.
Yeah.
And you know, continually said for the past, where are we? Still in 10 years, maybe for the past 7 or 8 years. This has got to end. This has got to end. This has got to end. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it hasn't yet. No, I mean, but you know, when we look at this, what's the next level in it? And it's potentially all the way down here. You know, that leads us to the 6,000 mark. It is scary, because when we kind of come right out from this point here, really, you know, this is the area here that the market struggled to get through for many a long year. You know, right along here, around about this 7,000 level was where the market struggled to get through. So it's getting fairly close to that, relatively speaking, 7,300. Certainly, if it comes down to this low here, that you know, back down to that low, I'll make it a little bit bigger again. That particular area could hugely change things and get us back into this range again, leaving this as a little bit of a false move. So we are off to the races anyway, mate. We've started the day.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having a look to see if there's anything happening for me. Oh, can I possibly? I don't think I can. Looking at the Aussie, I'll just show you. Oh, have you got a trade?
No, mate. No, you go ahead. The FTSE's interesting, but it's way off. So let's have a look at what you got.
Okay. I've really just had a look at the Aussie for the first time. I'm seeing the tiniest little double bottom and the tiniest little higher low, and now I'm seeing a bar that really suits me. I'm thinking long here, but I go back to my rule, and my rule states I can't trade into the high of the day without profit, and that's exactly what I'd be doing. Not that it's a significant high or a swing in any way, shape or form, it's just consolidation, but it is technically the high of the day. So my rule is don't do that, and for that reason I'll stay out. Otherwise, I think there's some acceleration through here, maybe to this level. If I get another shot at that, and can put some money in the bank, before I hit this high, then that's what I'll probably be looking to do. And I can't believe I'm saying long the Aussie, but that's the way.
The Aussie has had a crazy move to the downside, isn't it? I mean, it does. I've just seen all the bank holidays that we're in. I can see what you're saying. The US has got a bank holiday, Canada's got a bank holiday, and Japan has got a bank holiday. So actually, potentially very, very quiet out there on the Western Front.
It's generally illiquid when it happens. In particular, the UK or the US. But all sessions tend to back up, and we've seen that with Asia. That's nothing unusual.
So, shall we have a look at the news for the week?
Sure.
And then I'll talk about my my little tip for you this weekend. Did you talk about that,
mate? I watched one game, and unfortunately, it was the wrong one.
Which one did you watch?
I watched Leicester Everton.
Oh, okay, that's a curveball. Okay.
Well, it's the only. Honestly, I sat down in front of the television for maybe an hour over the weekend, and that was it. That was the only thing I saw.
Was it a good game?
What I saw was a good game. Unfortunately, I had to leave it. I think with about 7 minutes to go, it was 2-1. Crazy. Everton.
One of them.
I'm pretty sure it was Everton.
Okay.
I was very tired at the time as well.
We'll have a look. We'll have a look at the results of the weekend.
All right. Happy days.
Okay, so this is what we've got today. We've got Bank Holiday Japan, Australian job advertisements month on month. What sort of a news announcement is that?
Yeah, it's a bit weird, ain't it?
Yeah, I've never seen that before in any other country. But yeah, Australian job.
We do things differently here, mate.
So that's going to have a great deal of impact. Is that Casing Services? What's that? Level of distribution index between surveyed purchasing money. Oh, right, they call it something odd. Okay. Unemployment rate from Switzerland, which is not going to be significant. German industrial productions month on month, and Sensex investor confidence. So not only do we have bank holidays, but we have a completely arbitrary numbers that will not move the market one way or the other. So in a lot of ways, we can look at the technicals. There's very unlikely to be. It's extremely unlikely to have too many drivers today, but at least the technicals can be viewed there. And then tomorrow, things don't get too much more exciting, except for the fact that the US comes back on board. So tomorrow looks pretty quiet too. And then we have Wednesday, pound GDP. So the UK market will be showing GDP month on month and manufacturing production. So it looks like Wednesdays when things start to get kind of interesting. Maybe the German US, the German 10-year bond auction, maybe interesting or have some significance. We've had the Italian bond auction today, and the yields on that are sky high. So when you see things like that, it's not necessarily. I know it's a yellow folder, but if you see yields go in an extreme direction one way or the other, then all of a sudden it becomes a kind of red folder news for something to have in your back pocket later down the line. So that may be of interest. So it's worth watching that anyway. CPI from the United States, that's going to be of interest. Core CPI for the United States as well, so that's going to be interesting. So it looks like the tail end of this week we actually do start to get a little bit of interest and a bit of movement. Now I wonder whether that means that we are not going to have too much of an easy trading environment off the back of some of this news and data. But it does kind of mean that that the pound, in my opinion, becomes a lot more interesting for the day to try and take some sort of intraday trading opportunities. We can see already that bounce has happened. The bounce off that particular level has started to happen. So it's just whether it holds here, isn't it? And whether it can start to move back to the upside again. Looks like first take profit might be sorry, it might be kind of tight.
Where are you now? Sorry, you're back on the footsie.
No, I'm on the pounds actually now. Just
Okay.
seeing,
Oh, there's your screen. I couldn't see your screen.
yeah. I'm just, just showing that there's a bit of a bounce.
Yeah, look, when I look at the 30-minute chart, there's also an ascending or support trend line underneath it as well,
Right.
which is interesting. But I'm just having a look at this Aussie again. And
Yeah,
I'm
let me
looking at,
just give you back the screen.
I'm looking at Aussie yen this time because I'm just a little bit on the I wouldn't say bullish side, but I can see a little run to the upside here for the Aussie. I think we're clear of that level, so that's all good. Yeah, I'm just going to take a little order here long, mate.
Oh, okay.
The only small risk because it is a bad day to trade, in my humble opinion. But
Yeah.
let's have a go. There. Yeah, nothing on the table here. A quarter of a lot will be plenty, and we'll make it a buy stop, and the entry will be at 80.36. We'll put a stop under here at 80.23. So a 13 pip risk. There we go.
Okay, let me just have a look at this with you. Oh yeah, do you know what, mate? I can see this one. Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see. Interestingly, I know you don't use divergence tools, or do you?
No, I don't.
No, but there's divergence here. So actually, the Aussie does look like a little bit of upside to me also. So you're entering on the high end of the previous red bar.
But I'm on Aussie yen, right?
Oh, you're on Aussie yen. Okay, let's
Yeah.
have a look.
Yes, I'm entering on the high end of the previous 30-minute candle.
Previous 30-minute candle. Yeah, I see that. Let me just make sure that this looks the same. Interesting. Yeah, this one doesn't actually look as attractive on the divergent side. It still looks attractive though. Still looks attractive, just not as just not as clean.
We'll see. The premise here is of course, if we can get back above the daily pivot in real trading time. This is not real trading time as far as I'm concerned. We've had one go at it and failed. We had another go at it and failed. We had another go at it. I think we'll at least match the high, and I'll take profit there.
Yeah.
There is room to take profit here for me, especially on that risk. So that's where I'll take profit as soon as I see a spike here. And then my target's pretty obvious as well.
Interesting, isn't it? Because both the yen and the Aussie dollar are showing exactly the same, pretty much exactly the same pattern, and I'm seeing it really start to stretch its legs against this this dollar right now. Yeah, and do you know what else is quite interesting is the dollar actually is moving to the downside against the yen. Not to put you off the trade, but it actually looks pretty good against the dollar.
You mean I got the wrong one?
Well, I don't know, but it's but certainly the analysis that I've got. I know I don't know what I don't know what those. The thing is that obviously you're basing it around pivots. Now, where's the pivot? Same place.
Yeah, same place. Exactly the same place.
Yeah, let me show you what I've got with the Aussie dollar. No, I doubt you've got the wrong one. You know, you've certainly got the right idea with your strategy anyway. So it's not really for me to say. But this looks pretty similar in many respects to what we've got with the Aussie yen. You know, they've both got this channel. I've got this channel kind of going on. And that looks fairly similar in its kind of price movement, doesn't it, as well? It's pretty steep. So I don't think actually either one is better than the other one, except for when you bring in the dollar yen, and the dollar yen is just starting to ease the downside. However, let's just have a look at this, because that might well be on an area of support here. Yeah, it could be in an area of support. So actually, you know, if this supports, if this holds price here, then it would look, it would certainly appear that you've got the right currency pair. I mean, I don't think I would trust the Aussie dollar over the Aussie yen if this was to break down. So it means the trade isn't ready to be placed. But if this was to break down and then we start to see some dollar weakness, then I wouldn't be so concerned, and I'd be quite happy with that. We're trying to say that Aussie dollar, but not until then.
Yeah, look, I prefer to trade Aussie dollar, to be fair, but when I can't take profit where I want to take profit, then there's no point.
No,
the trade's not valid. So it's pretty much a simple formula for me.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I get it. I like it. We're starting to see FTSE 100 just starting to put in a decent attempt at a low down here. It's bounced quite nicely, breaks through this area, then we're very much more likely to see some fairly significant upside. I mean, there could be a 20 to 25, 30 pip run to the upside before we are looking for the shorts again. So as I say, the shorts are going to be here in this 73.45. We're currently down at 73.19. So you know, if this can hold down here, then that's going to look pretty good. There's also a daily pivot around about the 73.45 area. So I think that area would be the significant resistance. It's going to be probably easier to try and go for the short at this area rather than try and trade the fade into the into the long. But I do see this one picking up into this point, and then we can start looking for those levels. I'm just going to check out the heat map. How's that pound getting on? Yeah, pound hasn't really stabilised as yet, is it?
No, looking well, it's bang on the daily pivot as well at the moment. So
yeah,
this is the area that I'm interested in anyway.
So what I need is check out these, and let's see if there's any data. No. Right, we're about to get some. We're about to get a read of how these stocks are performing today, and so far. Oh. Okay, so I mean, I'm just going to give you a quick update.
Yep.
So this is a kind of a news announcement that Italy is holding firm on the budget plan for next year, which is effectively, refusing to accept the European banks' laws and guidance on what they need to do for their budget plan. So they're refusing to go down that particular path. And the Italian stock market is absolutely tanking, which I wouldn't be surprised at all if that also played a part. And that's the thing, when you get a move like this on the FTSE 100, which was opens there 200 pips in a day. I mean, that is extremely irregular.
Yeah.
When you get a move like that, then it would normally be about more than one thing. And I don't think it was the pound alone, even though we did see that pound significantly stretch its legs to the upside, and that was significant too. It looks like maybe those Italian news probably played a part on this, because if we look around the grounds with some of these, this is the French market. You know, that's not going to be affected by the pound in the same way. Where is my DAX? This is the German market. You know, all of them on the on Friday were having significant moves to the downside. So so I suspect the Italian issue was probably a great part of the move in the stock markets, throughout Europe.
Certainly looks that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's down 1.5% again today, the Italian market.
Wow.
So we definitely want to be looking at shorts in these markets today.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be too good for the euro either.
Well, interestingly, and actually, the other interesting part about this is the UK, the FTSE 100 actually has got fairly decent breadth in comparison to where we were. We were looking at breadth of 80% of stocks when it was coming down were sold off last Friday, and today we're looking at around. There's about 38% to the upside, so it's not quite as bad. It's still in the mire, and still the bearish side of the market breadth is in play, but it's not anywhere near as bad as it was. So market breadth to the downside, it would suggest that there's still a bit of a hangover from Friday, and it would suggest that there's still reasons to get on the short side. If it gets through this level, then we are obviously looking up here for a proper potential move, and to see if we can get down to these lows and beyond. So we just got to wait for this right now. 73.45 has got to be the area that we look for. So I'm waiting patiently to see whether that's going to happen. As I say, trading to the upside is going to be a little bit treacherous, so we won't bother doing that.
Yeah, of course, the issue today, with it being a US bank holiday, is are we actually going to move to that far? That's the big
yeah,
question.
that's you're absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
And,
so
that's this. Well, it is a scary part about trading when there's no liquid in the market, because your price is often just met, and that's it. And, and then it just fluffs around and does nothing for the rest of the day, and you're in a trade that you're committed to, and it really doesn't do anything. That's the frustrating part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're probably better off waiting for that, aren't we? Have you got anything that you wanted to bring up?
Only that the pound has now broken through the daily pivot.
Yes, it has.
And the Aussies come off the daily pivot, which you would expect to happen. And that's all good. Don't have a problem with that. So I'm looking at the pound now, because if it can, maybe you were looking for a bit of a deeper retracement, yeah? Than I
not too much. I mean,
around about here now.
Round about here now, I'll be looking for a bounce. I wouldn't really want to see it down to that weekly pivot. What I'd quite like to see with the pound is for us to form some sort of reversal bar on over the next 40 minutes. So by 9 o'clock, I kind of want to see this have held on and certainly closed around, but really above the daily pivot. And I think if we get that, then there are going to be people interested to move to the upside with stops at the low. So that would be the potential trade of interest to me. I think if we don't see that, then I'll be happy to actually let the time frames just step out a little bit and look at not necessarily deeper retracement, but a longer term time frame for a hold, rather than looking at the shorter terms, because I was really looking for an early bounce. The pounds are kind of maybe bouncing the first 15 minutes of the day, and that hasn't happened. So now that hasn't happened, then maybe we need to respect the fact that we do have a US bank holiday, and we could be kind of quiet, and maybe today's not the best idea to trade in. It's as I say, Friday wasn't a particularly good day for me. It wasn't awful. Or well, not as awful as it was at one point, I should say, but it was, not particularly good, and the temptation is to try and get into the market you know, early doors on Monday. But really, I think when it comes down to it, when you kind of rub your eyes and clear your head, you just recognise the fact that there are opportunities all week, and there's no reason to really be diving in. And it doesn't particularly look like the best market to dive into anyway. So I think there's a bit of a waiting game, yeah, a bit of a waiting game going on. Even though in saying that, this FTSE does look like it may well. No, that's no good. Okay, so
tell me how Cardiff went, mate. Come on.
Yes, so let's get to that. So this was the weekend's events that we were discussing, and these were the results. These ended up being the results. Now this was our game, 1-0 to Tottenham, and there was two games that I was considering this weekend. I was considering this Tottenham Cardiff for a bit of an upset, and Manchester United Newcastle for a bit of an upset. Now neither of them ended up happening. However, this second one we'll get to in a moment. But 1-0 to a Tottenham side against a team which is languishing near the bottom of the league is not a very good result. So I would stick with Tottenham. I don't know who we've got this weekend, and we probably shouldn't check them until Thursday. But I'll be sticking with Tottenham because I don't think that they are they are out of the woods just yet. When it comes down to changing their form around to being, you know, genuine, having some winning momentum. So Tottenham,
although that's a win, it's nothing to celebrate.
It wasn't a very convincing win, and it's certainly not a very convincing win against a bottom team. Now 1-0 is very, very close to 1-1, or it's very, very close to 0-0. So it could have been either of those. I think they were, by all accounts, quite fortunate in that game. It certainly wasn't a domination from Tottenham versus Cardiff, and then it just ended up as they managed to only get one chance in. I don't think there were too many chances in this particular game. And if we were to go into it a little bit further, then we might even get some stats. Now I'm hoping we will. Yes. This is always the main stat, the shots on target.
Possession.
Yes, man. Yes, the possession's very good. But you know what? This is I find this as a particular metric a complete misnomer. I was going to say a bit of a misnomer, but it's a complete misnomer because a team can have all the balls, all the ball they want in the world, but it's about chances created. And if anybody wants to balk at that fact, then go and check out how much possession Leicester City had during the season they won the league. They hardly ever had the ball, and it was all about the chances created and the chances converted. And I think they had the ball on average around about 30% of the time in most of their games. So this particular metric is pretty irrelevant. Shots.
Misleading.
What's that, mate?
It's misleading. Yeah.
It's misleading. Yes, misleading. Yeah, not irrelevant, but it's misleading. Exactly. Shots starts to become much more relevant, and Tottenham certainly were firing them in. But it's this one really. When you start to look at this one, this is when you start to see how significant these shots were. It just goes to show that that Cardiff were a lot more resourceful with the ball because their shots on target were only a couple away from the shots that they had, whereas Tottenham is less than half. The shots on target were less than half. So these shots can be anything. They can be shooting from the halfway line and it count as a part of the statistic. But it's the shots on target that we really want to see.
It sounds like that might be their problem.
Yes, they do tend to shoot quite a lot. They do tend to shoot quite a lot, but it wasn't. But a dominant display by a team in terms of keeping the ball. But when it comes down to it, the shots on target were nothing to write home about. So I don't think chances created were particularly significant.
If they're not hitting the target, that seems to be their problem. So they're strikers, if you want, or the goal scorers aren't on par.
That's right. Now, this is the other game, Manchester United versus Newcastle. Now, this is a team we need to watch as well, because the reason I chose these two is that my strategy, if you like, when it comes down to picking football bets for the weekend, is to look for a strong team that may come unstuck. Now, you tend to find that the cup games are brilliant for this, because if there's a team that's doing not so well in the Premier League, then and they come up against a lower league team which is doing okay, they're the ones that come unstuck, particularly if they go away from home.
Yep.
So it works the same when you come down to the league. You know, I like to look for the stronger team and see who they're up against, and see if they are susceptible to losing, because the bookmakers tend to price these. There's usually a bit of an indiscrepancy of the price of the stronger team from past glories. So Manchester United are also another interesting one. Now this one ended up at 3-2, and the interesting thing about this is that firstly they're at home. Secondly, their run of form has been pretty dire. And thirdly, at half-time, I think it was, or certainly at some point in the game, Newcastle were actually 2-0 up. So the issue was that Manchester United were playing a team that was low on confidence, and I don't think they've won a game so far this season. So if they were playing the likes of Bournemouth, or possibly Everton, or Leicester, or Wolves, I wouldn't pick these other two up here, but possibly Palace as well. I think that would have been a different result if the other team was 2-0 up. But the fact that they were playing Newcastle meant that there being some balking was probably heightened and a little more likely. So let's have a look at the stats with this one as well. And the stats with this one show that again, shots on target pretty close. But look, possession, same sort of thing. You know, you tend to find that the stronger team will have more possession because they are better at keeping the ball. But you know, so I'll go back to Leicester. When Leicester won the league, it was the possession wasn't their metric that mattered. Shots were fairly close, you know, fairly close in how far away they were. But again, the shots on target, I think, is the most significant one here. And corners tends to show a little bit of something as well, because it shows how long the other team has got the possession in the other team's danger zone, if you like, danger area.
Yeah,
so
it shows dominance, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I'm going to be going for those guys again. Now that the only difficulty I think we have coming up is the fact that there is a international break coming up, and that can actually change things somewhat when you're looking for a team's fortunes to start to switch. You can sometimes see after the international break, that's what they need, is they just needed to get their heads back together again. So we might start to see a bit of a change in the fortunes of the likes of Tottenham and Man United. But right now we're going to keep going after those guys, and we want to keep an eye on Bournemouth having a fantastic win against Watford. 4-0 is no mean feat, because Watford have been on a pretty good run. So we'll watch out for Bournemouth, and we will certainly watch out for Wolves, who have only just come up this season, but they are tearing up trees at the minute. So teams to look out for, the weaker teams to look out for, Wolves and Bournemouth. Still, the teams that are stronger that might have an upset on the cards would be Tottenham and Man United. So we'll come more to it as in the coming weeks and see if that does change. But that's the situation right now. The other,
right, so we're $1 behind.
Yes, we're $1 down.
We didn't get our $15.
No, no, we're $1 down right now.
Really quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's the rule that we will employ. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on the whether we would go for a draw or a win. We're going to split that dollar up if we're going to need to do both.
Okay, happy days.
So
new bars, new candles.
New bars, new candles. So yeah, let's have a look. Take the screen and let's see what we got.
Okay. Well, I'm trying. There we go. There we go. All right. Both of these, obviously the Aussie and the Aussie Yen, came off the daily pivot, and as I say, that's perfectly fine by me. I don't have a problem with that. The Aussie, had you taken the Aussie, you may have been in a bit of a pickle, and that, you know, pretty much that's why we don't take it at that level. Because we're trading straight into resistance, and we're at resistance, so it's a tough road to hoe or road to hoe, and that's why we don't. And that's why I went for Aussie yen, which, as you can see, the entry's above the daily pivot here, and we've got room to the high of the day. So that's the difference. And I'm not going to do anything here. I'm just going to leave that where it is and see what happens. But certainly the last candle was not a great one for the bulls. That's for sure. I've been having a look at pound yen, and that closed below the daily pivot, but not far off it. I'd like to see that one come down to the weekly pivot and find this confluence area. You can see quite clearly there the weekly pivot bang on these highs, and trend lines over here in confluence as well. This is a good level for me, so I'd like to see pound yen get down to there, and I can look for a bounce. Cable itself is potentially on the way there as well, but it's not as defined a level for me. I don't see the confluence. What I'm probably looking for now is consolidation here on and around the daily pivot, then get back above this area. If that's the case, a back test of this trend line would get me interested still. So I'm still interested in seeing what happens at this level. Euro failed to get through this trend line, but I don't like the candle too much. I'm not a fan. So I'm really still no direction here on the euro, but I'm still waiting for the pound long, but it's going to take a little bit longer now. The Aussie, it's still in there, but I don't want to trade the Aussie until it gets down to here somewhere, or it actually breaks this high, then comes back and retests the confluence of daily pivot and the trend line as a back test. So that would get me interested, but I'll hang out of that one. Pound yen, as I said, still waiting on that to get down here. If it does, I'll get very interested. And Aussie yen, nothing to change here. Everything is all good. With this this ascending channel that we've got here, on the back of a bullish engulfing bar at the bottom here, some continued higher highs and higher lows, and that's still continuing. So I'm still of the opinion we can get to this level, and I'm all ready to go with that when it does happen. So that's where I'm at, mate. Nothing more on the new candles at the moment.
Yeah, okay, well, I suppose where I'd be at is still in the waiting game. I think there's far too much danger down here to try and get into anything long or short, really. When we kind of bring this out a little bit, there's another area. Let's just draw this line in as well. So this is an obvious zone, I think, that we need to get back up to be looking for the short side. I mean, the measured move on this head and shoulders pattern is well and truly being cleared. Let me just quickly do that.
Yeah, gone well through it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's probably somewhere around there.
Looks like even 2 to 1 on that.
Yeah, it's a crazy move actually. Yeah, so then yeah, 2.5 by the looks of things. So the head and shoulders pattern is being cleared. So we're kind of in a different zone now, and it hasn't been able to hold anything. You know, even this gap here. When I looked on this this chart, I was looking at this gap as a potential hold point. It held there for a very short period and then continued to tank on the Friday. But it does look like you know, we could well see some move into this area before we start to see anything significant. I would suggest that is probably the significant swing area, somewhere around about the 74.37, which is a hell of a way from where we are now. But if we are able to pop forward there, then maybe we get another opportunity, because I think now it looks like the longer term picture on the FTSE may well be to the downside. But we know with these stock markets, when they are selling off, they sell off so aggressively that that these opportunities are few and far between, and it may be that the retracement is you know, not quite as deep as that. But it hasn't been able to hold up really. You know, there's not really been too much evidence that the FTSE is changing right now. Even the first chance that it had of attempting to get through the level for the day. It's failed, and it's failed, and it's holding. So we might well be in a bit of a holding range for quite some time. And this is a very dangerous holding range down here because it's too expensive to go short, or it's too pricey to go short at these highs here. Not enough room, and it's way too dangerous to go long at the low here. So really, we just got to wait for this area to be seen. 73.45 is not really a swing area. It's much more of a shorter term potential area for us to go short at. So not the ideal point, but if it was to come up to that point today, then we can take it. But until that particular price is seen, I don't think we can do anything. And I quite like that. I quite like that, but that particular pricing point as well. I think when we come down to the half-hour chart, it becomes a little bit clearer of why. And the half-hour chart would suggest that the best time to trade that particular point would be somewhere around about 10:30. So if we come up in the next hour or so, maybe 2 hours, then we have a much cleaner trade. Couple the fact that the daily pivot also sits around about this 73.45, and this particular price starts to really scream kind of loud. But let's do a quick fib on this as well. Not too bad. 22% retracement is just a little bit higher from the absolute high to the absolute low. So it's going to be somewhere in this zone. Is that this is the area we're after? I don't think we can do anything until we see this particular price, and that's what this has to be about to start with. We have to find out somewhere around here. This is what we're after, and until we get that particular price, I don't think we can really do a whole bunch. So we're gonna have to let the day pass, mate. We have to let certainly the next few hours pass anyway. But that is the price that we want to start to see signs and signals of reversal, somewhere around about the 73.45, and I won't be changing my stance until we get to that particular level.
Yeah, look, I don't have a problem with letting the day pass. I think when I looked at Forex Factory and saw it was a bank holiday in the United States, I knew what I was going to do anyway. Fact is, I've got an order in the market, and I didn't think I would have at this point. So I suppose that's something a little bit different. What I do have, however, is a quote of the day.
Oh, mate, this is what we're after.
I knew you'd be waiting on it. The interesting part is the author of this quote is a little bit of a mystery, and am I right to pinch the screen? I think I am.
You have the screen, yep.
Okay, so here's the quote. Now, it is rather investing rather than trading, but it's something that I kind of agree with, and it goes with my not so much counter trend, but counterintuitive nature of wanting to trade against the tide, if you like. And I guess I'm doing that at the moment on Aussie. So the wisest rule in investment is when others are selling, buy. When others are buying, sell. Usually, of course, we do the opposite. When everyone else is buying, we assume they know something we don't, so we buy. Then people start selling. Panic sets in, and we sell too. How true is that? And the retail trading world is very much stacked with people who do exactly that, and that's potentially why they get into trouble, of course, too often. Now, this guy Jonathan Sachs is a bit of a mystery to me. And a very quick bit of research on Jonathan Sachs came up with this particular number, and this guy here has got more awards than anybody I've ever met, ever heard of. He's just done so much stuff, but I don't see that he's the actual dude that we're talking about. And I've got to do a bit more research on this. Unfortunately, I did this late and really didn't get to do my due diligence on Mr. Jonathan Sachs. But he's been awarded, as I say, an amazing amount of awards. And I think this is probably the guy of whom we speak and who actually came up with that quote. But I don't see anything here apart from when I was doing a little bit of this Thursday's Awards. Man, have a look at that.
Wow.
He seems like this is the kind of dude who would actually come out with a wise quote. But I don't really see anything in there that's related to investing, and that kind of concerns me a bit. So I'll do a little bit more on that, and I'll actually endorse this tomorrow if it is indeed a fact, if he's the guy we're talking about. But maybe he isn't. So probably just go advisedly on that, and don't hand me down if it's not actually the guy. But I think it is, and he's got a lot of views, obviously, and he's.
Oh yeah, Jeremy Corbyn is in there.
Yeah, mate, he's all over it. He's everywhere. So he's probably the guy, but as I say, don't hold it against me if he's not, and I will confirm it or otherwise tomorrow. But talking about the quote, that something that I hold dear to me, because and although it is investing rather than trading, I definitely see parallels there, and I guess that's why if you're a trend trader, you're buying at dips and selling in rallies. Same thing applies, I suppose. It's pretty much the same thing. But that's with trend. I tend to go, yes, I'm happy to buy in a dip and I'm happy to sell in a rally, but not necessarily with trend. And I think there's probably the difference with the overall sentiment of exactly where you are headed in terms of the mob, if you like, where the money is headed, and obviously headed, is not necessarily on an intraday basis where you want it to be headed for a particular period of time. And as an intraday trader, that really is, I won't say it's irrelevant where the primary trend is, but I will say it's a point that you can take advantage of.
Yeah.
If the market is going in a direction, if the river's flowing, it does ebb and have a little, backwater, as they call it. And that's where I like to be. That's where the fish are, if you like. The fish tend to pool in those backwaters. And I think that's, it's my sweet spot anyway. Because by nature, I don't like to jump over cliffs with lemmings, I'm just not somebody who treads the same path as everyone else. So it's in my nature. And if it's not in your nature, then obviously, you do what you need to do. But it really suits me to trade against where I think the money ultimately will head. Yes, I don't have a problem with that, but maybe not in that 30 minutes that I need to get my money out or into and out of the market. So that's one of those quotes that, yes, it's investment related, no question, and not necessarily trading. It's something that I take on board. So if you see me trading completely counter-intuitively, that's why. It's pretty much because of that statement, right, or that quote right there.
Yeah, and I think we saw that with the pound recently, didn't we? Because obviously there are points where counter-trend trading is sensible, or I wouldn't say safer, but there's sensible points where you counter-trend trade, and there are maybe areas that counter-trend trading wouldn't be such a good idea. And I think we saw that with the pound recently, where it was a decent level to try and trade from. If we look at and I did try and get into this, but I slightly missed it. But if we have a look at the pound and where it rallied from, this point down here, while everybody else was selling, there were others there that saw that there was a potential point of support down there. Maybe looked for this reversal pattern. I tried to get in here, but my issue with trying to get into the pound, and it kind of dealt me up a bit of a curveball when I was trying to get into it, and it was on. Was it this bar here, or was it on a half hour? Might have been on the half hour. I remember us talking about it on the. Oh, it was this one. Was it that one? We talked about it on the Thursday or Friday, and I remember a bar that I wanted to trade, and I couldn't because it was too dangerous. Hold on 1 second. Let me see what.
And that's the whole point, because you've got rules around trading counter trend, and so have I.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't got those rules and you're just trading for the heck of it, you know, because you don't want to go with the flow, then that's a very dangerous ploy. But
yeah,
yes, if you've got a set of rules that get you in or keep you out, then that's exactly what you're looking for.
Do you know what it was? I think it was on this 4 hour. I was kind of looking at this, and as this was kind of coming up here, I saw this particular bar, which I couldn't trade to the upside. Yes, you can trade the higher the bar, but there was that bar, there was that indecisive bar. Then there was this bar and this bar, which actually made some sort of a little bit of an evening star pattern. And it wasn't really until this bar had closed all the way up here and taken out these highs with a close that the trade started to look genuine. But by that time, it's way too late. And I suppose because of that, that's another reason that I think with the pound that there's probably another fairly good opportunity with this, because we haven't had a clean entry, and usually you don't get a clean entry when the news or the announcements are first made, and it's the second time of asking that that those entries tend to be a little bit more trustworthy, I think.
Yes, definitely.
So, you know, actually the fact that it's coming to the downside as it is okay. I think if it comes down too deep, then we are, as I say, going to need to see probably a longer term time frame put in some sort of dip and some sort of bottom here before we can get into it on the intradays, because certainly intraday today, the opportunities are fairly light, because it's not coming... well, it's not holding at this particular point with any kind of confidence, and it means that trading in the direction of the current intraday trend is going to be tricky because of how strong that was. But trading long is starting to become less and less likely for the day, isn't it? As this does start to drift to the downside. So it's not really giving us the environment we need, is it, today? I see that market breadth is around about 50-50 as well on the FTSE 100. So with market breadth being where it is, but us not really having a decent trading zone, undoubtedly people are going to be starting to pick up down here. But there's going to be a lot of nervousness if this lower level breaks down. So not a lot to do with that. Nothing we can do with the pound. You know, a pretty strong move here to the downside. That Aussie that you were looking at before, you've still got your order in with that one, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So the Aussie.
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course. Euro is yeah, actually, yeah. So we didn't discuss the euro in that much detail. So we were talking about the Italian issue and how that could potentially affect the euro. Well, the movements on these markets was pretty much on Friday. You know, that's when things really started to get affected. And actually, what we saw with the euro was a little bit of indecision. You know, we didn't see the euro move significantly lower. I think a lot of that had already been priced in. You know, the Italian.
Is that the daily? Yeah.
This is the daily. Yeah. That's right. That's right. NFP. Yeah. So things did start to change somewhat with that one. But I can't see how it's going to help. You know, when there's this kind of thing going on in one of the major countries, I can't see how that really helps the euro. The interesting thing is that if we compare the euro to this, which is the French market, and we compare it to the German market, then on the dailies we've seen the German market come off, we've seen the French market come off, and we've seen the euro come off. Now, This is the other side of that. This is the FTSE. Sorry, this is the pound. The pound for the last couple of days has been moving to the upside, while the FTSE for the last few days has been moving to the downside. So the interesting point I think to take out of this is that we've seen the euro moving in conjunction with the main European stocks, whereas we've seen the FTSE do completely opposite to its currency. What I'd quite like to see is, and this is the dollar spot. The dollar spot has been moving to the upside, and this is the S&P moving to the downside, and this is the Dow kind of moving to the downside. So oftentimes the currency that is associated with the indice are moving in opposite directions. It's not a hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, you know, that's kind of the way it is. But we haven't seen that with the euro. So you know, the takeaway from that usually is what's underlying, what's causing those movements, and what's causing that weakening in it. And if it's something fairly significant and it's not down to do with interest rate rises and treasury yields and things like that, which are to do with a strong economy, then we have to read other aspects into it, and it can make things a little bit tricky. But if the euro is moving to the downside on that Italian news, that doesn't seem to me like it's going away anytime soon.
Yeah, what I am seeing at the moment, I've been watching the pound, and it's gone almost from bullish to bearish to me.
Yeah.
In not too long a time frame, and I'll explain that when you've got a tick.
Yeah, go for it, mate. Yeah, let's have a look.
Okie dokie. So this confluence area that we spoke of was definitely the place I was looking to trade this long. But with this candle that we just got, oh, hang on, I'm on a different time zone now. When's 4 hour candles close? I'm totally confused. We wouldn't.
We've got another hour.
Another hour. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So if this candle in the next hour doesn't manage to find its way back above the daily pivot, in other words, if it closes below the daily pivot, I've kind of changed my mind. What I will then look for, if this candle were to close exactly as it is, I would look for a back test of the same confluence area. So trend line, pivot. If it it's all in the same place, right? If it back tests that level, then that is a very strong signal for me that there's downside. And if I look at this, I'm still seeing my 3 black crows. I'm still seeing a lower high. I'm still seeing a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Then a higher high in relation to these, but a lower high in relation to that. So I still don't have this out of my mind. So I'm more than happy to jump back in this short if I can, and that's probably the place for me to do so. So I'll be watching that next 4 hour candle, and I know it's a US bank holiday, so that's going to throw a spanner in the works, so to speak. But yeah, the signal would be strong if that were to be the case. So I would almost certainly take that. And the issue, of course, is an untested weekly pivot below us and very close below us. Monthly pivot not too far away either. I think I'd be able to sneak some profit in here somewhere in between the weekly pivot and the monthly pivot, depending on where this candle closes, of course. We've still got an hour to go. If it breaks through here and all of these pivots, it's a very strong signal, but it's also going to produce quite a bar. Actually, it won't be that bad. Maybe that's the best case scenario. Let's take out all the pivots, the weekly and the monthly, close down here somewhere, then the back test. That would be very interesting. So that's probably the better case scenario for me, and that is cable. That's also going to look fairly good on pound yen, I would have thought, and maybe even a better place to get into the market. We're coming off these highs. We've still got the three black crows sitting there. Maybe this is the better one for me. And what does it have to do to get me interested? We'll probably take out these the weekly pivot and this, what level have I got there? 148.57, and there's a trend line there as well. So let's break that, break the pivot, break the trend line, and then back test it. Wow, that does get me interested. An entry around about here somewhere short. Tons of room for profit, and tons of room for even a target down here if you want to use a target rather than a trail. So yeah, pound and pound yen, I have changed polarity, mate, in the last half hour or so. I'm now thinking bearish, and I think pound yen might be a pretty good place to get into this, in this area here.
Right. So you are actually looking for for downside.
Yeah, but with a caveat, but it has to break. These levels have to go. I won't trade into them.
Yeah.
So these levels have got to go, and I've got to get the back test.
Yeah. Yeah.
So break, test, then I can go.
Right. So you're going to watch the market for the rest of the day, or are you going to pretty much take it off now?
I'll watch the 4-hour candles.
Yeah. Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. Which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And I think that's wise, because when it comes down to time equity and how you use your time, then switching to a 4-hour time frame can be very, very sensible if with a market this quiet, I think.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. No real interest. In fact, Aussie yen, it's probably going to come off now. I'll probably have a better opportunity if I was looking to trade intraday off this line here, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Probably find a better entry at some stage. So I'm actually going to can that order.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised in the least if that still happens. I'm not giving it away because we've got a bear bar.
Yeah.
Not least. No, that's not the reason. The reason is I'm just not going to sit in front of the charts.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate that.
So yeah, that one come off.
Yeah.
Delete. Done.
All right, mate. Well, we've got an opportunity which didn't quite come round, but no harm, no foul, because we didn't get entered. We got a FTSE 100 which is still kind of bearish, but with market breadth the way it is, I think has got a chance that it starts to get to our price. So I'm going to be watching that later in the day, probably around about I was going to say US Open, but that's not going to happen today. So I'll be watching it in a few hours at least, and maybe after the 4-hour bar starts to move. So I think we'll call it, should we, mate, and get back to it tomorrow.
Yep, sounds like a plan. Everything seems headed in one direction at the moment.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
South. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, dollar strength. Okay, buddy. All right, well, have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever time it is where you are. And I will see you in the morning. I'll speak to everybody else in the morning too.
All right, mate. Happy days, everyone. Bye for now.